I messed up and I want to talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. If you don't like me, you get to watch me beat myself up for about 10 minutes, so enjoy that. If you do like me, well, welcome. I want to talk about yesterday's Starfield video because it went completely south, and I don't want to act like I'm above any criticism because I certainly got this one wrong completely, and I want to explain what's going on. And I also thought this was just a good opportunity to kind of talk mano a mano, which I feel like we don't get to do as often as we used to because the industry is going a mile a minute, and certainly I am too. I'll touch on that a little bit for today's video, but I don't want to make any excuses. I definitely got yesterday's video completely wrong in how I framed it, presented it, handled it, and I don't want to make excuses. It's my bad, and I apologize for that. So for that, I want to just get into kind of how the sauce is made and what went wrong there. And for those who didn't catch the video, they can get the 411 here on what's happening. So pretty much what happened was yesterday's video about Starfield was on a plethora of leaks that have happened that we've actually covered on the channel before, dating back to 2018 about Starfield, you know, gameplay details. And what I was doing was kind of creating this timeline of what was right, what was wrong, what leaks were built off of old leaks that actually may be real, and kind of framing this perspective of based off a Reddit thread that was getting a lot of traction. Hey, no one really knows for sure, and that's kind of a good thing because Fallout 4 suffered from a ton of leaks. And based off what I read in the comments, which absolutely were giving me a massive smack on the ass, a lot of people were not disappointed with the content itself, which is good to see. It was more so like, hey, the way you framed this sucks, Matty. And I totally hear that. Normally when this happens, which it doesn't happen often anymore, there was a stretch of time last year where I felt I was failing as a creator because when my goals, when I make news or reviews or anything, I try to make sure my title and thumbnail are almost to the side, as in I don't want the conversation to be about any of that. Like I want to see the comments being about the content itself, because then that means I did my job and I presented the information and you want to talk about it, hopefully. So I had a couple of run-ins with that last year, and I feel like this year we've really figured it out for the most part. That kind of fine line you got to walk as a YouTuber of like, hey, I need to make this look attractive, but I also need to make this clear what's being presented to you. And again, I think we've done a good job, but yesterday was like an epic failure on that front entirely. And so when I was going through the comments, it seemed like a lot of people were just really displeased with how the information was presented in the terms of the title, which was the title, which I haven't changed at all, was the Starfield leak situation is getting out of control with the big capital, whoa. And yeah, a lot of people were like, it's not out of control at all. This is perfectly normal. You're completely exaggerating. Matty, you don't need to clickbait to get us in here. I want to just start off by saying, because I think this is an important video to make, just to not only confront what's going on, because normally I don't get a ton of blowback like that unless it's a video review, which people just have problems with opinions, so I can live with that. What I struggled to live with and why I know this was eating at me is I made the mistake of reading all this at like 2:30 in the morning when I finally caught the video extremely late, unfortunately, and saw the blowback. I was like laying in bed just thinking, oh my God, I messed up so friggin' bad. Like, how did I do it this bad? And so I don't want to make excuses, but I do want to just explain again a little bit of how the sauce is made. So, again, I need to just double emphasize, no excuses here. Slap on the ass deserved. I messed up. I just want to show you all how we got to this point. So normally I conduct the business within the video itself. I'll go in the comments. I'll talk with you, the audience, and be like, okay, what would you suggest? Like, I can rename this. I did that last year a couple of times, and we find something kind of in the middle, and it would end up being fine. Like, the video wouldn't get destroyed or anything, and I feel like I have now represented it fairly. I always try to keep the open line of communication with my audience because I don't want to ever act like I'm above criticism or feedback. I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to act like I am, but I'm also not going to act like I can't always be trying to do something better here. It's kind of my Achilles heel, but also the blessing is that, like, I just keep trying to push myself forward. So why did this get missed so poorly? Well, what happened was yesterday, and what I've been doing for a while is trying to produce a lot of content in advance because I'm going to be moving very soon in the next week or so. And I'm moving out of this office. I'm moving out of my house. I'm moving in with my fiance. It's really exciting. Separately, I've had a lot going on with my health where I have an MRI for my brain next week. And it's just been I'm doing okay, by the way. It's kind of more of like a, let's just make sure of something first. There's been a lot going on. And again, none of that is to make an excuse, but I have been running a mile a minute and I've done a really good job managing it. And especially like last month, June was one of our best ever months here on this channel, like in its history, which is crazy to think about. And all the videos were really well received. There was a great conversation. So just based off what I'm seeing, we're doing really well. But I've been going a mile a minute. Today, or yesterday, I should say, sorry, was a situation where what happened was I finished the video at like, I think it got live at like 7:30 at night. I darted home. I'm packing. And then I had to go talk to my brother about something. And then it's 2:30 and I'm like, well, you know, it's funny. This is going to, imagine this mental image. It's going to be a funny one for y'all. Like, I'm thinking like, whew, this has been a stressful day. Like, I want to engage my audience and like decompress. To me, like my news and discussions are kind of my safe space, if you will. Not that I can't get any type of criticism or feedback there, but I feel I do it really well, so I don't have to worry when I put something out there. There is that kind of apprehension as a creator when I make like a review. Anytime I make a review, it's more subdued now, but you never know what other reviewers are going to say, and you kind of have to just accept, oh, I might be the outlier here, which has happened to me multiple times. It happened with Final Fantasy 16. It happened with something like Atomic Heart, where you put out the review, and like with Atomic Heart, it was ridiculous. People were saying like, oh, he's depressed, and that's why he gave this game a bad score, which as someone who struggled with depression and anxiety, I'm like, that's kind of hurtful, but you just move past that stuff. You understand that you're just putting out an opinion that probably people don't want to hear at that point in time. Anyway, these Starfield news discussion videos kind of are my safe space. Like, I don't feel I do anything wrong or out of pocket with them. I feel very comfortable producing them. And I know a lot of people know me as the guy who's going to go that extra layer deeper, which is what we did yesterday. Like, it was a massive, big story. It was gaining traction for sure, but it was more like after I saw Juicehead's video on it, I was like, oh, okay, like, it was also really well received, and it was talking specifically about the leak that may be true. I thought, okay, I'll like frame the video around that probably, and we'll just talk about it more in depth. And yeah, so I put the video together. I bolted afterwards. I went home, packed, and all that stuff, and didn't catch the video until much later. And by that point, it's like when you see the like to dislike ratio, like for me, a normal like to dislike ratio is like 95 to 99%. Like, we're a pretty healthy channel. Like, there's not a lot of negativity here about what I do, which is great to see. There's a lot of channels that obviously thrive off the opposite of that. So for me to sign in and see like it was at 75, 80%, I'm trying to remember, I was like, oh, Christ almighty. What happened was I was in a rush. I picked an easy title that I've used before in the past, thought it represented the situation fine enough. The reality is I fucked up. I should have put more thought into it. There's a million other ways I could have labeled it with it still being an attractive video without the bullshit sizzle, which the sizzle is always going to be there. I mean, people understand like it's a YouTube channel. You got to market it to some extent, but there's a way to do it right, which I think we've done for most of the year. And then there's ways we do it wrong, which I did yesterday. And I don't want to like overcorrect in the sense, because I think, again, we've been doing really well, but I also think you as the viewer deserves acknowledgement when like I feel I've gone really astray, even for a video. This is not my style, as in I don't want to sit down every friggin' mistake and be like, oh, what did we do wrong? I went through that life, okay? Back in 2015, if you've been a long-term viewer of mine, you knew every mistake Matty made. It was like, let's sit down and make a video and talk about it. That ain't me now. Like, look, I think not every single thing in the world deserves an apology. I've made mistakes like last year with some of the titles and thumbnails, and I adjust them based off feedback. The problem is I got to this one extremely late, and I really wanted to be accountable for it, because again, I think it's important just to ground the conversation sometimes and talk with the audience and make sure they know you're heard. And you know what it is like y'all are my boss pretty much, and y'all are also family in a weird way. Like, no parasocial shit here, but like y'all are family in this sense where there's parts of my life, like what's happening now, where later this month I do want to sit down and talk about my health and what's been going on for about the last year, and talk about also you know, just moving and life in general, and where we started here in this office and where we're going to end up. So I hope to do that, but like, you're my boss effectively. Like, without you, there's no me, and that's the God's honest truth. A lot of YouTubers act like they're way above that. Not me. Like, there's no way, if y'all just say like, yeah, this guy sucks, like he's just baiting me constantly, I'm out. That doesn't benefit anyone. And a lot of people seem to misunderstand how clickbait works. I've already explained what we're trying to do, which is just like, we want to make the video attractive, and so we don't want to make you feel like you've clicked on something that you don't want to watch. Why is that? A lot of people think that YouTube channels are driven by viewership. Not true. You're driven by click-through rate, and you're driven by view time. If you click on a video and you don't like what you see, or you feel you've been misrepresented, just like yesterday's video, my watch time on YouTube, usually about like 8 or 9 minutes, which is extremely good, especially on Retro Rebound. We're a little bit higher than that, like, which is an honor. It means like what I'm saying is at least worth listening to. It dropped to like 5 minutes, which is bad for the channel, right? You look at that and you go, okay, people are clicking on us and going, fuck this. This is stupid. I'm out. That type of stuff does hurt the channel. And this isn't like some form of damage control, because like one video doing that, I mean, it'll happen even to a video performing well. Like as videos go up in views, your watch time will decline because it's just getting more exposure. But me or any other YouTuber out there, in their defense, and they may not know this, but trying to trick you and getting you into a video, it's like, oh, you thought it was going to be something else, and it's not, baby. That screws us over a ton, as much as it screws you over. Not only that, but I try to consider, like when I make content, I try to consider, you know, the everyday worker. Like I know for many of you who make time for my videos, they're usually 15 minutes a pop. If you watch Retro Rebound, maybe I'm making on some days a half hour worth of content that you can watch. And I love that we can do that. Where you might have just a lunch break. And I want you to spend that lunch break right. You might just have like a space after dinner before you get into studying. I want that to be time well spent. You may have only one moment to watch a review. I want, if you watch my review, to be completely worthwhile. And I know that sounds a lot like, oh, he's putting the weight of the world on his shoulders. Again, that's kind of the blessing and the curse of what I do, is I feel that pressure immensely. I don't take it lightly. So I really always want to stay in touch with that, even if it stresses me the hell out. It's, I think, a eustress almost, where it's important I feel that pressure, because I want to make sure every view counts, as in, you know, you're not going to please everyone. I can accept that. But that if you've chosen to spend some time with me, it's not time poorly spent. And yesterday was time poorly spent, because again, I could have labeled the video like, some Starfield leaks appear. Are they legit? That would have been perfectly fine. Probably would have taken me 30 seconds of extra thought. Instead, here we are today. It does tear me apart. I know that sounds like bullshit to many people, but the reality is, like, yeah, I should have never read that at 2:30 in the morning, right before bed, after packing and just being very tired, because I was extremely upset about it, because no one's a bigger critic of this channel than me. You know, I think there were a couple, in my defense, disingenuous comments. Like some people were saying yesterday, like, oh, you're just really good at talking about nothing. I find that particularly insulting, because I feel like my specialty has always been finding value in the information that people skim over. And that's always been the bread and butter of this channel, dating back to Fallout 4, like looking up copyrights and looking up like on Justia trademarks and looking up like tweets and connecting the dot and kind of creating this narrative of what could be. I think that's always been my strength, is seeing these lines and these dots connecting to one another and constructing an argument on like, what could this possibly be? So I feel like in the sense of the content, I do have to defend that a little bit. Like I think what was in the video and what we talked about and how it was presented, like I even said early on, like, hey, there's no new information here. It's just like, this is a lot of misinformation spreading and some accurate stuff spreading that's not necessarily new. Let's clear all that up. So I will say that in my defense, just on the back end of all of this, just to make sure like it's very clear. I feel okay with the video. I don't feel okay with how it was presented. I don't think the thumbnail was awful, but I think the title, it just shows how major that can be for you up and coming YouTubers. Just know you never truly master the game. But nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Of course, feel free to fire away with any additional constructive criticism, thoughts, ideas, feedback. Any of that stuff, more than welcome. As always, it's not just a one-time thing. You know, it's something that I welcome through the door constantly. And so with that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will see you in our next video. Peace out.